The desert sun beat mercilessly on the forward operating base, turning metal, sand, and skin into something almost unbearable. Dust swirled in long, lazy spirals, carried by gusts of wind that scraped across the concrete bunkers. The sound of engines idling, combined with the distant thud of mortar exercises, created a constant rhythm of tension. Soldiers moved briskly, carrying packs, weapons, and the invisible weight of duty. Into this unforgiving environment stepped Specialist Alina Reyes, freshly transferred from a mechanized logistics unit halfway across the world, and for reasons many men could not understand, whispered about before she even arrived. Her boots crunched on the gravel as she walked toward the motor pool. Conversation slowed. Soldiers glanced at her with curiosity, suspicion, and in some cases barely concealed amusement. A young private leaned toward his buddy, whispering, "They sent a girl to handle the snipers' rifles." "What's next? Cooking MREs for the colonel." The comment drew a few chuckles. Alina's focus never wavered. She ignored the murmurs, heading directly for the rack of sniper rifles lined meticulously in their padded cases. Each rifle had been transported across harsh terrain, inspected superficially, and left to wait for someone to maintain, adjust, and ensure its deadly accuracy. At the center of the rack sat a custom long-range sniper rifle, chrome glinting under the harsh morning light. Alina froze for only a fraction of a second, scanning the barrel, the mount, the scope. Something wasn't right. She could see it, feel it, a misalignment subtle enough that most would have missed it entirely. But she knew precision. A hair's breadth off at 100 yards could become inches at 1,000, and inches could mean a missed target or a life lost. From the edge of the motor pool, Colonel Matthew Harding observed her. He was a man molded by decades of combat, medals glittering on his chest, eyes sharp enough to cut through hesitation. His reputation preceded him, strict, no-nonsense, old school, and utterly unwilling to compromise. When he spotted her examining the rifle, he raised a single eyebrow and strode toward her, boots kicking up clouds of sand with each measured step. "This is our new precision weapons mechanic," he asked, his tone carrying more amusement than authority. A few soldiers snickered behind him, emboldened by the colonel's sardonic smile. "Hope she can handle more than paperwork," he added, glancing down at her hands, small, steady, and already poised over the scope adjustments. Alina didn't answer. She simply measured the distance between the reticle and the barrel edge, nodding what she already knew. 4 clicks off-center, maybe 5 once the temperature shifted and the sun hit the metal at noon. She memorized the exact adjustment she would need. Harding waved a hand dismissively. "It's fine, that rifle been zeroed last week. Don't overthink it." Alina's jaw tightened imperceptibly. She stored the information, making a mental note. Tomorrow, someone's life might depend on that rifle. It wasn't her place to argue, not yet. Discipline, after all, demanded patience. She set her tools down on a folding table, each instrument gleaming with purpose. Torque wrenches, precision screwdrivers, laser alignment gauges, everything necessary for micro-adjustments. Soldiers wandered past, some daring a glance, some pretending disinterest. One private muttered, "Does she even know what she's doing?" Specialist Reyes ignored them. She ran her fingers along the barrel, feeling every imperfection. Dust clung stubbornly to the metal, tiny scratches from transport revealing that it had been handled roughly. She traced the scope mount, checking for tension and proper fit. Everything had to be perfect. The rifle would not forgive error. A fraction too much torque, a slight misalignment, it would cost a shot. It might cost lives. Her mind flashed to previous experience, days spent in a dimly lit armory back home, calibrating rifles for marksmanship competitions, restoring engines and adjusting mechanisms until they performed flawlessly. Her father had taught her patience and precision, insisting she could hear the machine if you listen close enough. And she could. Every click of the turret, every slight pull in the scope told a story. The rifle spoke to her in a language she had mastered. Harding walked closer, arms crossed, boots crunching over gravel. His metals glinted. His face, weathered and lined, carried skepticism as much as authority. "You know," he said, "we didn't send you here to babysit metal. You're supposed to maintain it, not make it talk." Alina's lips pressed together. She said nothing. Her gaze stayed on the rifle. The colonel leaned in slightly, then straightened. "Make it fast. We deploy at dawn. I don't have time for overcautious mechanics." She nodded subtly, storing the instructions, her mind racing with calculations. Temperature, wind, barrel harmonics, tension in the mount, optic distortion, all of it mattered. Tomorrow, the sniper team would take the field, and the rifle's alignment would either earn a perfect shot or deliver failure. As she worked quietly in the background, soldiers whispered. Some doubted her. Some were curious. But no one could deny the calm confidence in her movements, the way she seemed to anticipate each adjustment, each torque, each micro-calibration. Even the desert wind seemed to pause around her. Alina double-checked the optic. 4 clicks right, 5 at worst. She whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, it'll make the difference." And in the distance, the colonel's smirk faded as he walked away, unaware that the mechanic he mocked might soon determine the outcome of the most critical mission the unit had faced. The desert sun climbed higher. The sand shimmered like molten gold. The rifles lay ready, and Specialist Alina Reyes prepared silently, unseen but fully aware that tomorrow, she would face not only mechanical precision but the judgment of every soldier in the field. And she would not fail. Night fell on the forward operating base like a heavy cloak, the heat of the desert sun replaced by a chill that crept into every corner of the armory. The wind had quieted, but the desert still whispered against the metal walls, rattling toolboxes and rifles alike. Inside, Specialist Alina Reyes worked alone, her breathing steady, her fingers moving with surgical precision over the sniper rifle she had noticed earlier. The air smelled faintly of oil, gunpowder residue, and sand dust, a scent that to her was familiar, comforting almost. She ran her fingers along the barrel, feeling each microflaw, each imperceptible bend. Her eyes, sharp and analytical, traced the scope mount, noting how it shifted slightly under pressure. She carefully removed the action, measured the tension, adjusted the screws. The smallest error could throw off a long-range shot by meters, which at 1,200 yards could mean life or death. She memorized every fraction of millimeter, committing the adjustments to muscle memory. From the doorway, Staff Sergeant Cole Bennett watched, arms crossed, his posture tense. He had been the lead sniper for this unit for years, and he had never encountered a mechanic so young, let alone a woman, who moved with such quiet confidence and skill. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Are you sure it's that bad?" he asked. Alina didn't look up. "At 1,200 meters, it'll pull right, 4 clicks minimum, 5 if the sun hits the barrel at noon and the sandstorm continues. A single shot won't forgive mistakes." Bennett exhaled, running a hand down his face. "Tomorrow, there's only one chance. One, and if that rifle's off, we could lose the mission." She nodded, confirming silently what he feared. She wasn't worried about the mission. She was worried about the rifle itself, about its ability to perform flawlessly under conditions no training exercise could simulate. She ran a laser alignment check and found a micro-offset, precisely what she had predicted. Before she could finish the final micro-adjustment, Colonel Harding appeared in the doorway, boots echoing on the concrete floor. The dim light caught the glint of his metals and the sharpness of his gaze. "You've been at it all night?" he asked, tone heavy with skepticism. "This is a sniper rifle, not a broken engine. Put it back together." Alina's hands paused mid-motion. "Sir, it's misaligned. If the team fires it tomorrow, they won't hit the target. It's 4 clicks off." Harding's eyes narrowed. "That rifle has been zeroed multiple times. You think you're the first mechanic to touch it." "I'm not saying I'm first, sir. I'm saying it's wrong now," she replied, her voice calm but firm. He stepped closer, folding his arms. "Listen, Specialist. This unit doesn't need lectures about precision. We deploy at dawn. I don't have time for overcautious mechanics questioning trained snipers." Alina stood silently, weighing her next words. She didn't argue. Arguing wouldn't convince him. And yet the weight of her knowledge pressed against her chest like a physical burden. The rifle would betray them if left uncorrected. Lives depended on this. She tucked the torque wrench back into its foam slot, storing her adjustments in memory, ready to act as soon as she could. Bennett exhaled quietly beside her. "You're not wrong, I trust your call, but Harding, he won't listen. Not now, not until it's too late." Alina met his eyes, nodding subtly. "Then I'll be ready when it matters, and if the rifle doesn't perform, I'll be the one to fix it fast." The colonel finally turned, muttering something about efficiency and discipline, walking out into the desert night with that familiar smirk that had become a permanent fixture on his face. Soldiers outside the armory whispered. Some doubted her. Some admired her. But no one interfered. Alina's focus was absolute. The tools, the rifle, and the calculations were all she needed. Hours passed. The desert night deepened, stars sharp and cold against the black sky. Alina continued her work quietly, adjusting torque settings, measuring the barrel, and running through environmental calculations in her mind. Wind speed, barometric pressure, heat mirage, sandstorm influence. She prepared for variables that most soldiers wouldn't consider, let alone calculate. Every adjustment, every calculation, every flick of a wrist was memorized, stored, and repeated until it became instinct. She paused for a moment, taking a breath, running her fingers along the cold metal. 4 clicks, she whispered to herself. 4 clicks and it will be perfect. She visualized the rifle in Bennett's hands the next day, seeing the reticle settle precisely on the target, knowing that the misalignment would be corrected before the shot. Bennett watched quietly, noticing the calm determination that radiated from her. The whispers in the barracks, the skepticism of the other soldiers, the smirks from the colonel, none of it mattered. What mattered was precision, skill, and readiness. And Alina had both in spades. By midnight, the rifle was fully disassembled, inspected, and recalculated. Though she couldn't adjust it completely without the colonel's permission, she had memorized every setting, every click, every nuance. She stored her tools neatly, wiped the sweat from her brow, and took one last look at the rifle. Tomorrow, she would either save a mission or prove herself in the harshest way possible. Outside the armory, the desert lay silent except for the whisper of wind over sand. Stars glimmered faintly through clouds of dust, and the distant hum of generators reminded her that the base never truly slept. Alina Reyes packed her small gear, slung her backpack over her shoulder, and walked to her quarters. She didn't celebrate, didn't relax. Her mind replayed the calculations, the barrel alignment, the 4 critical clicks. Precision, she knew, was not negotiable. And somewhere in the darkened base, Colonel Harding prepared to sleep, unaware that his next mission would be saved by the quiet, meticulous work of the mechanic he had mocked, the one soldier who already knew what the rifle demanded, before anyone else even realized it was off. The first light of dawn stretched across the desert, painting the sand in streaks of gold and amber. The base was unusually quiet, as if the wind itself had hushed in anticipation. On a distant ridge, the sniper team lay prone, their figures blending into the rocky terrain. Staff Sergeant Cole Bennett adjusted his scope, eyes narrowing as he scanned the valley below. His breath slowed, every muscle coiled and ready, every sense focused. Today, one high-value target must be eliminated. One chance. One perfect shot. No room for error. The rifle lay ready, gleaming under the rising sun, calibrated only partially by Alina's memory and adjustments. He knew it had been inspected, measured, and zeroed, but something felt off. He couldn't place it exactly, only that the rifle's weight in his hands felt slightly different than yesterday. He exhaled, steadying himself, as the target emerged from cover. A vehicle moving slowly through a checkpoint, men walking beside it, unaware of the danger closing in from above. Bennett aligned the reticle carefully, counting wind drift and heat mirage, crosswinds and gravity pull. He adjusted his breathing and squeezed the trigger. The rifle thundered. Dust erupted near the target, but not precisely where it should have hit. Inches off-center. A minor difference at first glance, but enough to ruin the mission. The target vanished behind a building as the team scrambled to reposition under emerging enemy patrols. From their vantage, every movement was critical. Bennett's heart sank. He could feel the subtle misalignment Alina had warned him about, though he didn't yet know the exact measurement. Panic didn't take hold, professionalism did, but the weight of the missed opportunity pressed on him like a physical force. He exhaled slowly, fingers brushing the rifle as if apologizing for the failure. Back at base, Colonel Harding received the radio report and stormed into the operations tent. "Explain, what happened?" His voice was sharp, laced with frustration that made even the seasoned soldiers flinch. The men relayed details carefully. Bennett said nothing about Alina yet, though his gaze kept drifting toward the mechanic who stood silently in the corner, arms folded, observing the chaos. Alina didn't speak. She didn't need to. The answer was clear to anyone paying attention. 4 clicks. She had memorized them. The rifle's subtle deviation had caused the shot to drift right, missing by a fraction that now made the difference between success and failure. Harding turned toward her, a mixture of irritation and dawning recognition crossing his face. "Specialist Rays, did you verify the rifle before deployment?" he demanded, though his tone suggested he feared the answer. "Yes, sir," she said simply. "It was off by 4 clicks, maybe 5 after the temperature shift and the sandstorm overnight." The colonel's jaw tightened. "And you didn't report it?" "I requested access. Permission was denied," she replied, her voice calm, unwavering. "I memorized the adjustments and prepared for correction during deployment. The rifle is fine if adjusted." Bennett finally spoke. "She's right. I felt it in my hands. The pull was there. I couldn't see it, but it was off." Harding's expression hardened. Pride and stubbornness warred with reality. He had underestimated her. Worse, he had dismissed a critical warning, potentially endangering the mission and his men. His silence was heavy, and for the first time the room felt tensionier than any battlefield briefing. Meanwhile, Alina quietly returned to her workspace. She began recalculating. The mission wasn't lost, not yet, and she had no intention of letting failure define the team. She ran mental simulations: wind patterns, heat distortion, target speed, barrel harmonics. She adjusted for conditions that would affect the next attempt. Every detail mattered. Every micro-correction could be the difference between a clean hit and a disaster. The soldiers around her noticed her calm under pressure. Where Harding had rushed, Alina paused. Where Bennett had acted instinctively, she calculated. And where others saw frustration, she saw opportunity. The team began to whisper, not in mockery, but in awe. Even the colonel, still fuming inside, couldn't ignore the quiet authority she projected. Hours passed. Dust storms kicked up again, more violent than before. Visibility dropped. Sensors monitored wind speed changes and mirages in real time. Alina worked feverishly, drawing diagrams, calculating adjustments, and preparing the rifle for deployment once again. She double-checked torque settings, optical alignment, and microcalibrations, committing every adjustment to memory in case manual correction would be impossible in the field. Bennett approached, tension etched in his posture. "Tomorrow it's all on the line. We only get one shot, one chance." Alina nodded without hesitation. "I'll make sure that shot counts. You can trust me, Sergeant." For a moment, even the colonel's skepticism was tested. Harding observed silently from the corner of the room, realizing he had misjudged the young mechanic. She wasn't just competent, she was extraordinary. The night deepened, bringing with it silence except for the faint hum of generators and the distant rattle of sand against metal. Soldiers began to rest, but Alina remained vigilant. Every click, every alignment, every calculation had to be precise. Tomorrow's shot would not tolerate error, and she would ensure it. She paused to study the rifle one final time, hands hovering over the scope. She whispered softly, 4 clicks tomorrow, it will make the difference. Somewhere in the distance, Harding walked past, unaware of the truth. The mission's success now rested not on rank, not on experience, but on the quiet, meticulous work of the mechanic he had mocked. And Alina Reyes was ready to prove that precision, skill, and calm focus could outweigh doubt, arrogance, and years of misplaced assumptions. The desert slept, but the storm of tension had only begun. The morning sun rose with harsh clarity, slicing through the thin haze of dust that clung stubbornly to the forward operating base. The previous day's failure had left a tension that no one could ignore. Soldiers moved silently, packs heavy on their backs, eyes darting toward the armory where specialist Alina Reyes prepared the sniper rifle. Rumors had spread like wildfire. The mechanic had predicted the rifle's misalignment and memorized the corrections. Some scoffed, some whispered, but all eyes now carried a mix of doubt and curiosity. Colonel Matthew Harding had not slept well. His pride, bruised by yesterday's missed shot, demanded accountability and spectacle. He summoned Alina into the operations tent in front of the entire sniper team, technicians and support staff. The air inside was thick, tense, almost oppressive. Dust motes caught in the beams of sunlight, dancing slowly as if mirroring the slow heartbeat of every soldier waiting to see what would happen next. "Specialist Reyes," Harding said, his voice carrying the weight of command, "you claim you can fix this rifle. I want proof. Now." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Some had already begun betting on her failure. After all, she was young, small, quiet, and had never proven herself under direct scrutiny. Many expected a stumble, a fumble, a visible sign that the colonel's doubts were correct. Alina stepped forward unshaken. "Yes, sir." Harding's next words drew a sharp inhale from the room. "Blindfold yourself and recalibrate it. One hand. If you're so confident, prove it." A ripple of disbelief moved through the assembled soldiers. Whispers erupted and died instantly under Harding's glare. The idea seemed impossible, blindfolded, one-handed. The sniper rifle, intricate and unforgiving, required absolute precision to perform at extreme distances. Even a minor error could render it useless, and yet Alina remained calm, methodical, unafraid. She took the rifle and sat at a small folding table, her posture perfect, muscles tense but controlled. The blindfold went over her eyes. Darkness surrounded her, but her mind did not waver. Her hands hovered over the turrets, feeling for micro-resistance in the metal. She could hear the faint click of the adjustment knobs, feel the slightest shifts in barrel alignment through her fingertips, and measure the weight of the scope against the body of the rifle. "Wind compensation," she whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else. "Elevation correction, microharmonics balanced, barrel memory adjusted." Each phrase was precise, a mantra, guiding her movements with flawless technical accuracy. Staff Sergeant Bennett watched from the side, jaw tight, heart thudding in his chest. He had handled the rifle in live conditions countless times, but watching her now, blindfolded and one-handed, defied his understanding of what was possible. He glanced at Harding, who stood rigid, hands behind his back, observing every movement with a combination of skepticism, fear, and dawning respect. The minutes dragged, though the world outside seemed suspended. Alina's fingers moved with delicate certainty. Every click was deliberate, calculated, and memorized. She adjusted the scope, measured for windage, recalculated the elevation, and made micro-adjustments that most soldiers could not even detect visually. She counted the clicks audibly, ensuring each was precisely where it needed to be. Finally, she removed the blindfold and set the rifle down. The room fell utterly silent. Even the desert wind seemed to pause. She spoke simply, calmly, and without hesitation. "5 clicks left, corrected." Bennett exhaled sharply, stepped forward, and set up a test round. He aimed at the target on the firing range just beyond the ridge, each breath measured, each calculation in sync with Alina's adjustments. The rifle cracked. The bullet struck exactly where intended. Dead center. Perfect. The tent erupted in whispers, some awe-filled, some stunned, some reluctant. Soldiers who had doubted her stared, mouths agape. Others shook their heads slowly, as if confirming to themselves that it really had happened. Harding, however, did not speak. He stared at the target, then at the rifle, then at Alina. The smirk that had once crossed his face was gone, replaced by something heavier, a mixture of recognition, embarrassment, and grudging respect. For the first time, he realized that his assumptions, his biases, his mockery had been completely misplaced. Bennett stepped back, lowering the rifle. "She's right," he said quietly, almost reverently. "Completely right." Alina gathered her tools calmly, placing them back in the foam-lined case with precision. She didn't celebrate. She didn't seek applause. There was work yet to be done, and perfection demanded discipline, not pride. The colonel cleared his throat, finally breaking the silence. "Specialist Ray's excellent work." His voice was controlled, formal, but carried weight. No sarcasm, no mockery, only acknowledgement. The soldiers watched, absorbing the lesson that had unfolded before them. Respect was earned, not granted. Skill could not be ignored. And in a world where a single misaligned click could cost lives, trust in ability was everything. Alina remained calm, her hands steady, her mind already running through the calculations for the next deployment. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, harsh and unforgiving. Inside, a lesson had been learned. Precision, preparation, and quiet focus outweighed arrogance and rank. The mission would continue. The target would appear again. And now, with the rifle fully corrected under the most extreme test imaginable, the sniper team had a chance to succeed. A chance that rested entirely on the quiet, unwavering skill of the mechanic they had once mocked. As the sun climbed higher over the base, illuminating every scarred bunker and sand-worn vehicle, soldiers moved with renewed purpose. The desert had not changed, but the air carried a new respect, palpable and undeniable. One person had proven that expertise, determination, and precision could triumph over doubt, prejudice, and expectation. Specialist Alina Reyes collected her notes and prepared for the field team's next operation, knowing that every click, every adjustment, every calculation she had memorized could make the difference between life and death. And for the first time, everyone in the tent understood. She was not just a mechanic. She was a force, quiet, methodical, and unstoppable. The desert night lay heavy and dark, a blanket of silence punctuated only by the distant hum of generators and the occasional scrape of sand against metal. After the public test, the mood in the base had shifted subtly. Soldiers walked taller, more cautious with their words, their earlier skepticism fading into quiet curiosity and, in some cases, awe. Even Colonel Harding's usual commanding presence had softened, his eyes betraying a grudging acknowledgement. Specialist Alina Reyes was not just a mechanic. She was a strategist in her own right, capable of precision that rivaled the snipers themselves. Inside the operations tent, Alina sat at a makeshift workstation, cross-referencing environmental data with ballistic calculations. The desert was unpredictable. Winds could shift suddenly. Heat distortion could blur targets. Sandstorms could erupt without warning. Every factor mattered. Her fingers danced over the tools, her mind working in fractions of millimeters, milliseconds, and microangles. She recorded every detail meticulously. If the sniper team failed again, there would be no excuses, only preparation and flawless execution. Staff Sergeant Cole Bennett entered quietly, carrying the rifle with care. He had watched Alina work the day before, and while the blindfolded calibration had stunned him, now he faced the reality of combat. "It's worse out there tonight," he said, nodding toward the sensors displaying wind patterns across the valley. "Visibility is patchy, and the target won't stay exposed for long." Alina glanced at the readouts, her eyes flicking over wind speed, barometric pressure, humidity, and thermal distortion. "2 clicks left," she said calmly, "and adjust for wind gusts at 50 meters per second. Elevation stays steady but anticipate barrel heat shift after the first shot. Bennett blinked, absorbing the information. That's precise, he muttered. Precision is all we have, Alina replied. The team began to deploy. Soldiers moved like shadows across the rocky terrain, each carrying packs, rifles, and the heavy responsibility of mission success. Alina monitored their progress from the operations tent, adjusting calculations as new sensor data arrived. Every movement mattered, every misstep could compromise the mission. She spoke clearly over the comms, her voice calm, precise, authoritative. Shift half a click right for wind gust. Elevation steady. Target will appear at marker point Charlie. Wait for confirmation. The sniper team adjusted silently, following her instructions with trust they hadn't known yesterday. Bennett lined up the rifle, hands steady, eyes focused through the scope. His mind trusted Alina's calculations, even if his instincts screamed caution. And then the target appeared. A vehicle moved slowly through a checkpoint, men walking beside it, unaware that death hovered above. Dust swirled around them, heat waves shimmering in the dim moonlight. Bennett exhaled, counting the milliseconds before the perfect shot. Alina's voice guided him. Steady, steady wind gust, now 2 clicks right. He adjusted, following her precise directions. The rifle felt perfectly balanced in his hands. Nothing could shake the team. Time seemed to stretch, the desert holding its breath. Bennett squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked, a thunderous sound that echoed across the ridge. The bullet struck exactly where intended, clean, precise, and lethal. The target was neutralized instantly, no collateral damage. Relief and tension collided in the operations tent. Soldiers cheered quietly into their comms, careful not to disturb other units, but their eyes shone with a newfound respect. Bennett lowered the rifle, a grin breaking across his face. "Tell the mechanic she just saved this mission," he said into the comms, his voice low but unmistakably sincere. Even Harding, standing behind the team, remained silent for a moment. Then he exhaled, his jaw unclenching slightly. For the first time, he realized just how much he had misjudged Specialist Reyes. Pride, habit, and bias had clouded his judgment. Her skill had ensured success where arrogance might have guaranteed failure. Alina, meanwhile, did not celebrate. She continued to adjust notes, preparing for contingencies, monitoring live data, and recalculating environmental variables. Precision demanded continuous attention. There was no room for ego, only results. Bennett approached her after the mission. You saved us," he said quietly. "I didn't think it was possible under those conditions. I was wrong to doubt you." Alina shook her head. "It's not about me. It's about the rifle, the data, the environment, and the team following instructions." Bennett smiled. "Still impressive. Blindfolded calibration yesterday, live corrections tonight. You're extraordinary." Alina only smiled faintly, tucking her tools back into the foam-lined case. She had work to do. The mission was complete, but the desert never rested, and neither could she. The soldiers returned to the base quietly, exhausted but victorious. The desert wind carried their footsteps, soft and uneven across the dunes. Inside the operations tent, Harding finally spoke, addressing no one in particular. "Results matter. Precision matters. Today, both were delivered by someone I underestimated." Alina looked up, meeting his gaze. No words were exchanged, none needed. Respect had been earned, silently, in the way that only skill under extreme pressure could demand. The night stretched on, quiet once more, but the energy lingered. A lesson had been delivered. Preparation, precision, and calm focus could overcome doubt, skepticism, and even rank. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new missions, and new variables. But for now, one mission had been saved. One rifle had performed perfectly. One mechanic had proven that expertise and determination could tip the scales in life-or-death circumstances. Alina Reyes closed her notebook, checked the rifle one last time, and rested her hands on the smooth metal. She didn't relax, she couldn't. The desert was unforgiving. The enemy unpredictable, but she was ready. Her calculations were memorized, her skill undeniable, and her confidence unshakable. And somewhere in the quiet, Colonel Harding stood observing her, a man who had mocked her just days before. Now he understood. Talent and precision could not be ignored, and for the first time he saw clearly that the measure of a soldier was not in rank, but in the results delivered under impossible pressure. The desert was silent, the rifles ready, and the night had witnessed the quiet triumph of skill over doubt, precision over arrogance, and a mechanic's calm mastery over chaos. The sun had barely begun to climb when the base stirred to life. Soldiers moved quickly, boots crunching over gravel, carrying weapons, gear, and the weight of another day in the desert. But inside the operations tent, attention remained heavier, more personal than the wind or the heat. Colonel Matthew Harding paced silently, metals glinting in the morning light, jaw tight, thoughts racing. He had underestimated specialist Alina Reyes, and the realization burned. She had not only predicted a misaligned sniper rifle, but corrected it under impossible conditions, blindfolded, one-handed, and perfectly. Yesterday's failure and today's triumph had unsettled him in ways he wasn't accustomed to admitting. Harding's pride had taken a beating. His skepticism, rooted in decades of combat experience and deeply ingrained military hierarchy, had been shattered by a mechanic half his age, with no battlefield accolades, no medals, no reputation beyond technical skill. And yet, she had delivered results where he had doubted. Results always mattered in the military. Always. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair before calling her into his office. "Specialist Reyes," he said formally. "Report." Alina stepped inside, her boots silent on the worn floor, toolbox in hand. Her posture was perfect, disciplined. She met his gaze calmly. There was no arrogance in her expression, only professionalism and quiet confidence. "Sir," she said, standing at attention. Harding gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." His voice was tight, measured. "I need to clear the air." Alina waited, hands folded neatly in her lap, understanding the unspoken tension. She had seen commanders before, men whose pride could swallow reason. This was one of them, and yet there was something different in Harding's demeanor now, something heavier, something acknowledging the truth he had long resisted. "I was wrong," he admitted finally, words coming slowly, each one measured as if weighing the gravity of his admission. "I underestimated you, and I misjudged your capabilities. That rifle, the adjustments you memorized, the blindfold calibration, all of it, it saved the mission." Alina's expression remained neutral. She had heard plenty of apologies in her life, most of them hollow, most of them coming too late. She responded simply, "Sir, rifles don't care who calibrates them, only how well they're calibrated." Harding's eyes softened slightly. He looked at her, really looked, and saw the calm precision in her posture, the confidence in her hands, the quiet authority in her presence. "I understand that now," he said, his voice low, "and I need you to know that will not happen again. Your expertise will not be dismissed. I will make sure of it." Alina nodded subtly, her lips pressed in a thin line. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Respect, she knew, was earned through results, not words, not recognition, and she had already earned it. The colonel leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped together. He considered her for a long moment, then spoke again. "From now on, you have full authority over the sniper rifles in this unit. Any adjustments, calibrations, or corrections, you decide. I will support it. No one else has the final say on precision. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Alina replied. Harding nodded, a faint exhale escaping his lips. Pride battled against grudging respect. He had been wrong, and it was a hard truth for a man like him to accept. But he had learned, and the lesson was unforgettable. Outside the office, soldiers whispered. Word spread quickly through the unit that the colonel had publicly acknowledged Alina's skill, granted her authority, and admitted his error. Some soldiers were surprised, others relieved. Many simply admired the mechanic who had quietly proven herself under impossible conditions. Back in the office, Harding's voice softened, though the weight of command remained. "I want the sniper team to know you're in charge of all calibrations. No exceptions. Understood?" "Yes, sir," Elena repeated. Her tone was firm, calm, unshakable. The colonel nodded again, almost to himself. He rose from the chair, packing slowly. "You've earned more than respect from me," he said quietly. "You've earned trust, and in this line of work that's more important than medals or rank. You've reminded me what truly matters." Elena gave a subtle nod, returning the silent acknowledgement. She wasn't here for praise. She was here for precision, for results, and for ensuring that every rifle, every shot, and every mission met the highest standard of excellence. Weeks passed, and the base adapted. Soldiers who had once doubted her watched with a mix of admiration and humility as she worked. Requests for guidance and instruction trickled in. New recruits sought her advice. Even hardened snipers deferred to her judgment on technical matters. She had earned the unspoken authority that no rank could bestow, the kind that comes from unwavering competence and flawless execution. Harding observed quietly from a distance, a man unaccustomed to admitting he had been wrong. But now he saw clearly. Skill, discipline, and determination could outshine skepticism and rank. Elena had proven it, and she had done so without arrogance, without theatrics, and without complaint. The next morning, during inspection, Harding stopped beside her workstation. He studied her hands, carefully adjusting tools, her eyes scanning every component of the rifles laid out before her. "Specialist rays ensures our shots land," he announced, his voice carrying authority and finality. There was no sarcasm, no hesitation. The declaration was met with quiet nods from the assembled soldiers, the kind that acknowledged the truth. Elena did not respond with words. She didn't need to. Respect, once earned in such a manner, required no acknowledgement. It was understood. That night, as the desert wind stirred dust across the base, Harding reflected on the events that had unfolded. He had mocked her once, underestimating her. Now he realized that the measure of a soldier, a mechanic, or a team member was not in assumptions, appearances, or rank. It was in results, and she had delivered them flawlessly under conditions most would deem impossible. Specialist Elena Reyes continued her work, meticulous, disciplined, unshakable. The rifles were ready. The snipers trusted her. And the desert, harsh and indifferent, seemed to recognize the quiet triumph of skill over doubt, precision over arrogance, and competence over assumptions. Inside the office, Harding finally allowed himself a small, private acknowledgement. "You were right," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "I see it now." And for the first time, the colonel understood that respect, earned through results and unwavering focus, was more powerful than rank, authority, or reputation. Outside, the soldiers prepared for the next mission. Inside, Elena recalibrated her notes, studied environmental data, and prepared for the challenges that were sure to come. Precision was her creed. Results were her currency. And in the desert, where mistakes could be fatal, her quiet mastery had become indispensable. Weeks passed, and the forward operating base felt different. The desert wind still carried grit and sand across the cracked concrete, but there was a new current running through the camp, one of quiet respect, cautious awe, and grudging admiration. Soldiers who had once whispered doubts about Specialist Elena Reyes now watched her every move. Her presence commanded attention not through words or rank, but through the precision and authority she carried with every action. She moved among the sniper team during pre-mission checks, inspecting rifles, adjusting mounts, and calculating environmental variables. Her hands were steady, fingers deft, eyes scanning for misalignments, microbends, or torque errors invisible to anyone else. Even the most experienced snipers deferred to her judgment. Bennett, who had once doubted her, now looked to her before making adjustments, trusting her calculations implicitly. "2 clicks left for wind gust," she would say calmly, and he would comply without hesitation. Word of her blindfolded calibration spread quickly through the ranks. Recruits whispered excitedly to one another. "Did you hear? She calibrated a sniper rifle blindfolded, one-handed," they said, eyes wide. A few veterans smirked at first, skeptical, but the proof was undeniable. Mission after mission, Alina's adjustments had saved operations, ensuring perfect shots where even experienced snipers would have faltered. Even outside the sniper team, her reputation grew. Mechanics requested training. Soldiers asked for guidance. Engineers came to watch her work, studying how she combined intuition, calculation, and precision. She became a quiet mentor, her authority recognized and respected across the base. Yet she remained modest, never flaunting her accomplishments, never seeking the spotlight. Her focus was always on results, on precision, on the mission. Colonel Harding observed her from a distance. At first, he had been reluctant to acknowledge the depth of her skill, but now he had no choice. The unit's efficiency, accuracy, and morale had shifted because of her. He overheard soldiers speaking of her nickname with reverence, "Dead Center," not because she demanded attention, but because she had earned it with flawless results under pressure. One afternoon, during a routine inspection, a new recruit approached hesitantly. "Is it true that you did the sniper calibration blindfolded?" he asked, voice trembling with a mix of awe and disbelief. Alina glanced up, calm and composed. "I just listened to the rifle," she said simply, her eyes meeting his. The young soldier nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson without fully understanding the depth of her skill. Bennett, standing nearby, couldn't help but grin. "She doesn't just fix rifles," he muttered to another sniper. "She saves missions." Even Harding, who had once mocked her, began to treat her guidance as authoritative. "She knows these rifles better than anyone I've seen in decades," he told a visiting officer. "And when precision matters, she's the only call we make." His words carried weight, not just because of his rank, but because of the hard-won experience backing them. Alina's reputation wasn't just technical. Soldiers began to trust her judgment in critical moments, in situations where hesitation could cost lives. She had become a linchpin of the unit, not because of rank, medals, or ceremony, but because of results, undeniable, flawless, and repeatable. Yet despite the respect and acknowledgement, she remained humble. She never allowed the nickname Dead Center to change her demeanor. She focused on the calculations, the adjustments, the tiny details that others overlooked. She trained recruits patiently, explaining wind drift, elevation correction, and the subtle ways temperature and humidity could affect a shot. She taught them to respect the rifle as much as the mission. The soldiers began to notice that following her guidance wasn't just about skill, it was about confidence. When she directed adjustments, they knew the shot would land as planned. Even in the face of chaos, her calm presence inspired focus and composure. Where doubt had once existed, trust took root. During one evening drill, a sniper approached her, anxious about an upcoming live-fire exercise. "Specialist Rays, I don't think I can adjust for the wind like that," he admitted, frustration in his voice. Alina knelt beside him, steady hands on the rifle. "Focus on what you can control. Elevation, windage, breathing, trust the data, trust the rifle. I'll guide you through the rest." With her instruction, the soldier recalibrated, the shot landing perfectly. The lesson was clear. She didn't just fix rifles, she built confidence and competence in those around her. The nickname spread beyond the sniper team. Soldiers on patrol, engineers in the motor pool, even cooks and medics began referencing her skill in hushed tones. Dead Center wasn't mockery. It was respect. It was recognition of someone who had mastered her craft, who could deliver results where others faltered, and who remained unshakably calm under pressure. Colonel Harding observed her quietly one evening, the desert wind kicking up sand around the base. Soldiers moved past, rifles slung, packs heavy, but their eyes often lingered on her, silently acknowledging the skill that had earned them confidence and success. Harding had once thought she was just another mechanic, someone he could overlook or doubt. Now he knew better. She was indispensable. Alina continued her work, meticulously calibrating, teaching, and monitoring. Her influence was subtle but undeniable. Her presence alone ensured discipline, precision, and calm focus across the unit. Soldiers whispered her name not in jest, but in awe. And as the desert night stretched over the base, stars shimmering coldly above, it became clear that the young mechanic had done more than fix rifles. She had reshaped the unit's culture, earned its trust, and proven that skill, determination, and precision were more powerful than doubt, rank, or expectation. Specialist Alina Reyes had become a legend, not through boastful words or medals, but through unwavering competence. And the desert, harsh and indifferent, had witnessed the rise of a soldier whose quiet authority and meticulous skill commanded respect from every corner of the base. The desert sun dipped low over the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the forward operating base. The wind carried grit and sand across the dunes, as it always did, but the atmosphere inside the camp had changed. Soldiers moved with a quiet confidence, a rhythm born of trust in their training and their rifles, and in the quiet mechanic who had transformed the unit. Specialist Alina Reyes walked among them, toolbox in hand, surveying the preparation for the evening mission. Her eyes scanned each rifle, each adjustment, each detail that could mean the difference between life and death. Even after weeks of success, she maintained the same meticulous focus. The nickname Dead Center had spread across the base, whispered in respect by snipers, recruits, and engineers alike. But Alina did not let it distract her. Titles and reputation were fleeting, precision and results were permanent. Each rifle she touched, each adjustment she made, carried the weight of responsibility, and she treated it with unwavering discipline. Colonel Harding approached her quietly, watching as she fine-tuned a scope. The medals on his chest glinted in the fading sunlight, but there was no trace of mockery in his eyes, only respect, tempered by experience and humility. He spoke softly. "Specialist Reyes, the team trusts you implicitly. I've never seen anything like it. Your work, it's changed this unit." Alina glanced up, nodding slightly. "Sir, it's not me. It's the rifles, the data, and the soldiers following procedure. Precision isn't about ego. It's about results." Harding studied her, realizing the weight of her words. She had demonstrated more leadership in the field than many with rank ever could. She didn't command through authority. She commanded through competence, through calm mastery of a craft most could barely comprehend, and the effect had rippled across the entire base. As the sun sank, the sniper team prepared for deployment. Bennett checked each rifle, his trust in Alina absolute. "You ready?" he asked quietly, glancing at her. "Always," she replied simply. Her calm presence reassured the team, steadying nerves frayed by heat, fatigue, and the weight of responsibility. The mission unfolded under Alina's guidance. Every adjustment she had memorized, every micro-correction she had planned came into play. The team moved in sync, following her calculations, their trust in her unshakable. The rifles were precise, the shots lethal, and the targets neutralized without error. Each successful engagement reaffirmed the quiet authority she had earned, the reputation she had built through discipline, skill, and relentless focus. Back at base, soldiers gathered quietly around the armory, sharing the results over whispered conversations and cautious smiles. The nickname Dead Center was no longer just a reference to a single blindfolded feat. It had become a symbol of reliability, competence, and calm mastery under pressure. Soldiers who had doubted her now deferred to her guidance without hesitation, knowing that her judgment could save lives. Even Colonel Harding addressed the unit, formally acknowledging her contribution. "Specialist Reyes has demonstrated an extraordinary level of skill and precision. She has saved this unit more than once, and her authority over the rifles is absolute. Listen to her, follow her guidance, and trust her judgment. She has earned it." The room fell silent, soldiers absorbing the weight of his words. No one laughed. No one scoffed. For the first time, even the skeptics recognized the truth. Alina's expertise was indispensable. Later, as the desert settled into night, Alina worked quietly at her station. She recalibrated the rifles for the next mission, adjusted scopes and double-checked alignments. Each movement was deliberate, precise, and practiced, a testament to hours of preparation and mastery. Yet beneath the discipline was something more, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that her work directly protected lives, ensured success, and commanded respect without demanding it. Bennett approached again, standing silently at her side. "I've seen a lot in my years," he said softly, "but nothing like this. You've changed how we operate, how we think, how we trust each other." Alina looked at him, calm and unassuming. "It's not about me, Sergeant. It's about precision, preparation, and trust. When everyone trusts the process, the results take care of themselves." The night deepened. Stars glittered coldly above the base, distant and indifferent. Yet inside, a quiet legend had been forged. Soldiers whispered her name in admiration. New recruits studied her methods, old hands deferred to her expertise. Even Colonel Harding, once skeptical and mocking, had learned a lesson he would not forget. Skill, discipline, and results outweighed rank, assumptions, and arrogance. In the quiet hours, Alina reflected briefly on her journey. She had been underestimated, doubted, and mocked, but she had persevered, letting her skill and calm determination speak for her. Each success reinforced a simple truth: expertise commands respect, precision earns trust, discipline ensures survival, and a single individual committed to mastery could shift the balance of life and death in the harshest of environments. As dawn approached again, the desert wind stirring sand across the base, soldiers prepared for the next operation. Rifles lay ready, calculations precise, and trust between the team unshakable. Alina Reyes, the mechanic who had been underestimated, had become indispensable. Dead Center, the nickname whispered with respect, was no longer just a name. It was a legacy. Colonel Harding watched from the operations tent, the medals on his chest catching the first rays of light. He knew, finally, that respect and trust could not be commanded, they had to be earned. And Alina had earned them in the most unforgiving environment imaginable. She had proven that skill, patience, and unwavering focus could not only save lives but inspire an entire unit to operate at its absolute best. And so the desert continued, indifferent and harsh. But within it, a quiet force of precision and mastery had emerged, a mechanic who had turned skepticism into respect, mockery into acknowledgement, and doubt into a legend. Specialist Alina Reyes would be remembered, not for rank or medals, but for the skill, calm authority, and unwavering discipline that had changed the fate of every soldier she touched. The rifles were ready, the snipers trusted her, and the legend of Dead Center would endure, a testament to what one meticulous, determined, and fearless individual could achieve against impossible odds.